tonight. Appreciate His goodness. We turn your Bible to the book of Philippians, chapter 3. Philippians 3, and we'll read verse 13. It says, Brethren, I count not myself to have apprehended this one thing. I do, forgetting those things which are behind, and reaching forth into those things which are before. Press toward the mark, the prize of the high calling. Let us therefore, as many as be perfect, be thus minded. And if anything ye be otherwise minded, God shall reveal even this unto you. Thank you for standing for the reading. And got a little thought on my mind, and had a few thoughts. Maybe I thought earlier in the week, but as I begin to get closer to the weekend, sometimes they just don't. You just don't really feel them. But I was thinking about this, and like I said, you know, it's the end of the year, and I was at work Friday, I believe it was, and Brother Chris Dipper was there, and he said it's the last Friday of the year. And I said, it's the last Friday of the decade. Right. And it's hard to believe that we have went through another decade. Right. It don't seem like we just a little while ago we was over the old building and having a watch night service, and it was Y2K, and everybody was watching the clocks, thinking surely the lights was going to go out at midnight. I mean, it was just the big scare, yeah. And I thought, but it didn't happen. And 20 years have went by, and a lot of things have happened. That's right. I've seen more rapid change in the last 10 years than 13 or so than I've ever seen in my life. It just rapid at the change. And unfortunately, all of it hasn't been for the good. A lot of it has been for the bad, Brother Ronnie. We've seen our country, our world around us go more and more to the extreme. And I thought, and not only have we seen the world, but we look around and we see how the churches are going to that extreme. That's right. They're veering away from the plan of God. And I thought, I want to stay on the plan of God. But as I read this, Paul said, Brethren, I count myself not to have apprehended, but this one thing I do, forgetting those things which are behind, and reaching forth unto those things which are before. Forgetting the things behind, and reaching for those things which are before. Mm-hmm. And I thought, you know what, as I begin to think about this today, and I was sitting there on the couch, and began to think about a lot of things that we do, and how a lot of times people make plans. I thought Christmas Day we was out Mom's, and Brother Sparks, we have a special dinner. He eats good. I mean, he enjoys eating, and I enjoy eating, but I can't eat like I used to. One plate usually does me. And we got through eating. We were sitting there in the back den, and he said, I really enjoyed that today, but I'm going to cut back. And he began to tell me how he was going to cut back. And I've seen him do it, and he can do it. And I've seen him lose a lot of weight in times past. And I thought, so that's a goal that he has set for himself. And he always told me, if you want to make yourself accountable for something, just tell somebody. And so he was sitting there, and me and Brother Steve, and I believe Lester maybe was in the back room, and he began to tell us what he was going to do. But the thing is, you know, we all have expectations. We're looking forward to things. But I thought a lot of times the problem is we're looking at the things behind us instead of the things before us. And I thought before church we was, Brother Ronnie and I were talking a little bit, and we were talking about school. And he said that whenever he was in school, he always said when he got 16, he was going to drop out. And, 16 rolled around, he kept on going. And he told his mom, if they can put up with me 2 more years, I can put up with them for 2 more years. So he endured it. And I thought, I remember that there's nothing that I disliked like school. I disliked it. Mom and Dad took me out of the public school, put me in a Christian school, and it was a lot different. But I still disliked school. And but we had, it was something we had to accomplish. But I look back at those things, and I realize now, Brother Ronnie, the opportunity that I had that I didn't take full advantage of.
Right.
I mean, they took me out of the public school, put me in a Christian school, and I should have done a lot better than I did, but because of my lack of discipline in myself, and how much I disliked school, I didn't take full advantage of the opportunity that I had. I did not finish high school. 10 years later, in 2000, I should have graduated in 89, so 2000. David was in school, and he came home with some papers, and I decided to go get my GED because I always felt like there was an incompletion there.
Come on now.
And I wanted to complete that. So therefore I went back and I got my GED, and even though I didn't walk across the stage and graduate, I still feel like I reached that completion. I took the equivalent of finishing my high school. And I thought there's a lot of things in our life that we look back on and we see a lot of incompletions there. Things that we think we should have got done or we should have accomplished that we didn't get accomplished. And if we're not careful, we look back on those and we dread those things. Yeah. No, I didn't. Like I said, I didn't graduate, but I got the equivalence of it. And but I thought but the whole thing was I was always looking back on that. If only I had it. I've got a diploma now, and they mailed it to me in the mail, and it's in the top drawer in the chest of drawers there at the house. And where I put it today, I received it in the mail, and I've never took it back out. I've not used it. I've not needed it for anything. But still, it's something I accomplished. But I'm always looking back at that. And I thought on the spiritual side of things, a lot of times we're looking back at things, and when we need to be looking ahead. Right. I thought we don't have to be imprisoned by our past. And I thought we can be. We can allow our past to capture us in a way that we can't go on. And I thought, if there was anybody that could ever look back on their past and allow it to hold them up, then the man that wrote this letter would be that man.
That's right.
Apostle Paul done some terrible things. I mean, he stood and he held the coats of the men that stoned Stephen. I thought each day that he found it, he looked at it as doing something great when he brought tribulation and persecution upon the church. Right. Those followers of this Christ that the churchy people, the religious sect had went against. I mean, Paul thought he was doing something great by persecuting these people. And then he comes into contact with Jesus, and we know the story of how he does that, and he's stricken blind, and all the things that takes place. And I thought Paul could look back on this and say, I'm not worthy to advance on. I'm not worthy to write a letter to these churches and tell them how they need to follow after Christ. But he said, I'm forgetting those things which are behind and pressing toward those things which are ahead. I thought, hallelujah. There are circumstances that we create that we just simply can't undo. There's nothing we can do about some circumstances. I had a young man contact me a couple weeks ago, and he said, I need prayer. My life is a mess, and I need prayer. Right. And I texted him back, and I said, I'll pray for you. And so he goes on to tell me he needs, some things he needed to do in his life. And I said, yes, you do. And then there's some other situations, and I said, but you help create a situation that's got you to where you're at. Right. There's nothing I can do about that situation. Nothing anybody else around you can do about that situation. But if you want to do better, then you can start from where you're at now and you can go forward.
Right.
No, you can't go back and redo those things, but we've got to start at where we are now and advance forward. We can't be looking back to those things. And I thought, I'm sorry that people have created situations in their lives that they look back and there's always going to be that mark. But I thought we don't have to allow those things to stop us from doing what God wants us to do.
Right.
I thought, yeah, we might be limited, but we still can work for the benefit and the glory of God.
Right.
And I thought that's my main desire, is doing what the Lord would have me to do.
Amen.
Pressing forward to those things which are ahead. I thought we've got to commit ourselves to turn our back against the things that have allowed us to maybe even transgress
Right.
against God.
Right.
While thought about a thing today, I read a little thing, and about the American Civil War, and the interesting thing about the war is when it was over, and all the slaves had been set free. Some of those slaves that had been set free decided that they were going to stay with their former masters
Right.
and continue to work. They had lived a whole life of slavery, and they were afraid of what being free would do. They was afraid they couldn't make it by being free. And so they decided they were going to stay on those plantations, and they were going to continue to work for their masters. The ones that had held them in bondage for so long. And, and as I began to think about that, I thought a lot of times people that come to the house of God and they come to an altar and they find freedom from their soul.
Yeah.
They look back at all the things that they had done in the past that had them bound and had them enslaved. And you see them go right back to those same things.
Think about it.
I mean, it's sad, but I've seen it time and time again. I remember when I was a kid, we went to church one time, and a family member went with us, and and they were churchy, but they didn't live right. I mean, they were just staying in their life. They needed to get closer.
Uh-huh.
And I remember going to church. They never went to church with us. And they went to church with us at one time, and they went to the altar and they prayed and they cried. And man, I was so excited. Just a little kid. I don't know, 5, 6 year old. I remember it. And I might have been a little older than that, but I wasn't much older. And but I remember going to the church and they prayed and they cried that night. And just a couple of days later, we ran back into them, and some of the same things they were doing, they were still doing. And I remember, as just a little kid, I just slumped down and I felt my heart drop.
Right.
Because I thought they found what they needed. Maybe not understanding what my mind was thinking, but just as a kid, I looked and I thought they found the Lord and they prayed and they felt the presence of God. But now they're still doing the same things that they've always done. And I just couldn't quite understand it. But the problem was, it was the grip that those things had on them. And they couldn't leave those things behind and press forward to the freedom that they had with the Lord. And I thought, and the Lord died to set us free. And the Holy Ghost has given us the power to become free. But I thought a lot of times, just like those slaves, we choose to obey those things that have us bound.
Oh, God.
Oh, Sister Kathy talking about that little dog on the road. And it's just a pup. They chained it up there back in the summer. And they move it from one tree to the other. So they have no front yard grass at all. But I thought, every time, tonight, as I came out through there, and that little fellow run out through there, I hit my brakes. Because I just, out of my vision, I just seen that dog coming, and I knew I was going to run over it. Knowing what it was going to do. And I thought, it desires that freedom.
Right.
I remember, I used to have we had an old chocolate lab there at the house. And Sister Debbie Northern, her husband, gave it to us. And I just let him roam free. And but he loved to swim. And we'd go down to my father-in-law's, he'd get in that creek, and man, he'd play. And one day I went down there, and I got ready to come home, and he was gone. Could not find him. And so I thought, well, he went back to the house. And so we went back up to the house, and he never did show up. And so I just figured he was gone. Maybe he got out on the road, somebody shot him. I didn't know what happened. And it was 2 or 3 weeks later, I was out there in the yard one day, and I was doing something, and I looked over, and here he come. Had that nose right down next to the ground, and that tail tucked under his legs, and he'd come creeping up through the yard because he knew that it had been a long time since he'd been home.
Yeah.
And I thought he'd come easing up through the yard, and I looked up, and I liked the old dog, and I was so excited to see him that I yelled out his name. That head perked up, and that tail began to wag, and here he come in a full run. I guess he thought that I was going to just get on to him for being, I don't know what the poor dog thought. But as he came up through there, he was just so excited to see me. And I thought sometimes we're the same way. We get into things and we get troubled down.
Yeah.
We let them burden us down. And we come up and we come back to the altar, and we come just like that old dog with our head down and and we think there's no hope. We're doomed this time. But the Lord meets us, and I thought we find that newfound freedom. But I thought if we're not careful, we can allow those things to keep pulling us back and keeping us from being what we need to be with the Lord.
That's right.
And I thought, no dog, we had him there for so long, and one of the neighbors threatened to kill him, and I finally had to put a fenced in half the backyard, put him in it. Didn't have him there 2 or 3 weeks. Come home one day, and he was laying there dead. And I don't know if the neighbor did slip over and poison him, or just the confinement of being put away, and him as old as he was, he just died. I don't know what happened to him. But I thought if we're not careful, we can allow those things to confine us in a way that we'll die.
Right.
We can't pull out. But I thought we got to get past those things and reach for those things which are ahead. I thought the book of Romans, chapter 12, chapter 6, verse 12, it says, let not sin therefore reign in your mortal body, that ye should obey it in the lust thereof. And I thought the thing that we've got to do is we've got to get beyond those things. We got to keep the things out of our life
Yes.
that can keep us bound up
Right.
and from doing what the Lord wants us to do.
Yes.
There's so much that can keep us from getting where we need to be with God. When God says for us to not let sin control the way that we live, and not give in to the desires of the things of this world, He is issuing us a challenge to turn our backs on our transgressions.
That's right.
The Christian writers used to talk a lot about those things that called them besetting sins. And I thought when I was a kid, I remember hearing people talk about those besetting sins, and what they mean by besetting sins was particular sins that are particular to Christians that they're prone to doing them time and time again, if you would, allowing those things to just keep getting us sidetracked,
Right.
keep getting our mind off things.
Yeah.
I'm one of those. I mean, just tonight, coming to church, and usually Sister Kathy grab my leg or holler at me or something. I don't know. Maybe she was looking off tonight. And but I'm one of those that I'll be driving and I'll look off and she'll holler, "Watch where you're going." And I was coming out there tonight and I looked off and when I looked up, I was headed toward the ditch and I jerked it back real quick and she didn't catch me tonight. And I thought, but I thought a lot of times we do the same thing. We allow ourselves to be drawn off from where we need to go.
Right.
Allowing something to keep our focus from being where it needs to be.
Right.
And I thought when we do those things, then we're being drawn away. I remember whenever Sister Laura was just little, just young, and Kenneth lived there beside us, and Shane is just right at a year older than Laura. And with him being a boy and her being a girl, and they had BB guns, and they'd get out there and they'd shoot those BB guns.
and she was actually a better shot than he was. And I remember him getting mad because she could outshoot him with that BB gun. But the thing was she was more steady than he was.
Right.
And she took her time and she focused better. And she was keeping her focus on what she was doing. And I thought by doing that, then she was able to be better at it than he was. And I thought a lot of times if we would just simply focus on the things that God wants us to do,
Right.
we'll find ourselves coming out.
Amen.
We'll find ourselves doing exactly the way God wants us to do.
Yes.
And I thought that so many times we're allowing things to draw us away. And I thought it don't have to be a big sin. My brother Ronnie was testifying a while ago. The man that he went to church, he'd be put into the church, he done all these things. But then when he thought he was going to die, he had something in his heart toward another brother.
Right.
And I thought nobody else seen that, but he knew it was there. But had he have, what if he didn't get sick unto death? What if he just had an accident and died? That would have still been in his heart. That one little thing could keep us from being where we need to be with God.
Right.
And I thought, so it's so easy for us to look and hold on to those things, but we need to lay those things aside and press toward to those things which are ahead of us.
Right.
And I thought the Lord's got to, He's given us a lot of promises. Not just in His Word, but He's given us promises as church.
Yes.
And I thought, and it's easy for us if we're not careful to allow to look around. I thought tonight, like Brother Sparks said, some had Christmas, we got a lot of sickness. We look around, the crowd's low, and if we're not careful, we can look at those things and we become depressed.
Yep.
We can allow anxiety to build up.
Yeah.
We look around, but I thought if we stand on the promises
Yes.
of
Yes.
God,
Amen.
stand on those promises.
Yeah.
We know that God is able. And I thought looking toward, looking ahead, looking forward to those things which are ahead of us.
Yes.
And know that God is going to do it.
Yes.
I thought as we are going into this new year, I thought, will this new year just be a changing of the calendar of events? Or will it be a changing and a challenge to us to do greater things for God? I thought we do it. We say it all the time. I'm going to do better. And I thought, I've got a greater desire to do better. I've got a greater desire to do the things of God. I thought we don't have a whole lot of time left.
We
No,
don't.
sir.
I mean, when we look around at the way this world's going, and Brother Sparks teaches Sunday school this morning, and talking about some of the things that are so prevalent in our world today, I thought we can't have a whole lot of time left.
No, sir.
And I thought I don't want nothing to cause me to look back,
All right.
but I want to be able to look
Right.
ahead to those things which are before us.
Glory
Does that come against the song?
God.
glory be God.
Very simple preaching tonight. But I thought, I want to have a desire. I want to have a greater desire. I look back, Sister Kathy was talking about her being a teenage Sunday school teacher. And I remember times whenever there were so many, and we had so many young people.
Right.
And then even whenever I was a teenager, we had a lot of young people. And I look back and there's not very many of those that are even in the house of God now. They backslid. And just a very few of us. And then the ones that aren't coming here. But I thought, and you why? But they failed to look ahead.
That's right.
And those simple chains that had them bound, they allowed them to bind them again.
Oh, God.
I thought, I don't want to be bound by the things of this world.
Oh,
I thought, I want to take the freedom that
yes,
comes in
Lord.
serving God
Yes.
and go forward with it. Is that against the song tonight? Let's pray.